I don't know your names yet. And Lewis, of course. But these are about 20 pounds. You can weigh them, didn't you?
I'd say 15 to 20.
And this is fresh clay. Now, if you want to make this, I'm going to focus on large pieces today. Now, if you want to make large pieces, you don't have to use clay this size. I was at a workshop with Don Martin. He was making large pieces, and somebody said, "Why can't you throw that much clay?" And he said, "Well, if you can make a 1-inch pot, and you make 31-inch pots, you can put them together and make a 30-inch pot." So this shouldn't be, I'm doing this just for because that's the way I do it. If you want to make large pieces, you use the same technique with smaller pieces and just add on. The key to adding on, using this technique is putting them together at the right time and the right consistency. And that comes with practice. The first couple times they'll either be too hard or too soft. Too soft, you'll notice when they start falling down, and too hard, you won't be able to move the clay anymore. Unless you make the pieces precise enough or make the joints as part of the form. But don't let a large amount of clay be an obstacle. Now the first piece I'm making is going to be the shoulder. So this isn't going to have a bottom in it. I'll flip it over on the wheel. It won't have a bottom. So I can get my hand inside of it when I flip it over and cut it off the bat. Can everyone hear me? I don't talk too loud. I'm reaching in underneath this rim, so I get it wide enough in the bottom. I have to be careful not to get this coil. It's actually a coil of clay on there now. I got to be careful that it doesn't come off the bat, which can happen when it doesn't have a bottom in there. There's not as much clay holding it on. Well, the way I got started in clay, I learned how to make pots on the wheel in high school in Rochester. I was, I think, junior or so, junior or freshman maybe. I was 16 when I started. And I went to college for a couple years after that to focus on ceramics. But I got to college and realized it was well, I went to college because I wanted to party, of course, and did a lot of that. But I realized that at college I was being groomed to be a teacher, which I wasn't that interested in. So after 2 years of college, I left and traveled a bit, traveled around the States for a while, and ended up back in Minneapolis with a job at a pottery on the West Bank on Cedar Avenue, and doing production growing. And I had just enough skills as a potter to get hired. I was paid piecework, so there wasn't huge risk for the guy hiring me. And there was nothing called workman's comp or perks of any kind. It was just piecework, so we were independent contractors. But after a year there, I thought it was the best job a guy could ever have. So doing something you love to do and getting paid for it. I remember my first check, I think it was 74 or 75. My first check for a week's worth of work was 35 bucks. I got it made. I thought, this is fantastic. Of course, things were a little different back then as far as the economy went and stuff. You could survive on a couple $100 a month if you were a bachelor and didn't have to have a car or anything. But I did that for a year, and I learned all the shapes at the studio there. And I started making my own way as a potter. I moved to River Falls. I bought a kiln from another potter who was going through a divorce and things, so I bought his kiln. It was a gas kiln. Put that up in my backyard and started making pots and surviving by going to local art fairs, just making enough money to get by and buy materials for the next work cycle. And I did that for a few years. And what happened then? Broke up with my girlfriend, met another girl, a Danish girl. And went back to the workshop in Minneapolis to make some more money because I wanted to go visit her. She was just visiting. I promised I was going to come visit her. Didn't really believe I was ever going to do it. I went back to the pottery. It's called John Coiner Pottery. I don't know if anyone's heard of it or know about it. I think he still has a booth out of the Renaissance Festival. But I did that for another year and a half or so and saved up enough money to go to Denmark by way of Mexico. So I went to Denmark for a visit. I was only going to be there for a year or so. I told all my friends that I'd be back in a year. But as it turned out, I got married over in Denmark and went to Africa with my wife, where she was employed by a Food and Agriculture Organization as an agronomist. And I was there as a dependent spouse, and I met another potter there, who was a Canadian, who was also a dependent spouse with his wife. She was a teacher at the college. So we hooked up and made pots. We dug our own clay and found our own glazing materials and started wood firing down there. He'd managed to scrounge some bricks.
Where in Africa did you?
Swaziland, that's in southern Africa.
Southern Africa?
Yeah. So I was there 2 years. We were doing this self-sufficient pottery thing. The nice thing about it was our wives made enough money so we didn't have to worry about earning any money. But we did manage to each profit about $30 or $40 a month, you know, making pots and selling them. We paid some guys to work for us, dig clay and stuff. And we made a lot of stuff. We'd go through about 6 tons of clay in a year down there, the two of us. And we had some guys working for us too. But I did that for a couple years, came back to Denmark, got divorced, met another Danish woman, and started doing, then I built my own. See, here's how it happened. I built my first wood kiln in Denmark before I went to Africa. And I had 2 failure firings. I burned every piece of wood I had up and I didn't reach temperature. And I didn't know what I was doing. And when I lived in River Falls, I knew Randy Johnson and hung out with him a bit. And I thought, wood firing doesn't look that hard. So I built a kiln and realized halfway through that I was building it wrong. So I got an old car jack in her and jacked up the whole arch with some boards and some wood and changed some bricks in it, got it fixed up. But when I went to Africa, I hooked up with this Canadian guy, and then together we figured out how to fire a wood kiln. So I came back to Denmark and had made pots for a firing, and was firing my kiln for the first time after I got back from Africa. And the phone rings, it's my Canadian friend from Africa, and said, "We're on our way home and we're in the city near where you live, at the train station." That's crazy. So I went and picked him up and continued the fire and came back, and him and I finished the first successful wood firing of my kiln in Denmark. And then I moved around a bit and had a couple kids and a few more kilns and came to Minnesota in 1990. And I've been making pots there since. I came back to work with a friend of mine who I worked with in Minneapolis. He was making souvenirs for the Renaissance Fair. So I worked there, worked with him for a couple years doing souvenirs, making good money, but just getting totally burned out. You know, the more it's piecework, so the more money you wanted, the harder you worked, and it was starting to turn into a grind. Came home from work, had a beer, slept, and got up and went to work the next day. And I didn't like that part of it. But anyway, I'm going to use this torch here for a little bit.
Bill's also, just to plug him a little bit, he was the first national throwing champion of Denmark.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
If you're gonna give credit where credit's due, he's got, as far as wheel thrown pieces, he's got all kinds of ribbons in his studio from Pottery Olympics, quote unquote Pottery Olympics, that thrown the tallest 2-pound cylinder in 3 minutes, or so on and so forth. He's a good thrower. He's a very
Well, I
good
owe it
thrower.
to production work.
Yeah.
You know, just sitting down, throwing pot after pot after pot, day after day after day, and not seeing it again.
And you
Just
can
doing play work.
notice it that he can tell a story and throw 20 pounds worth of clay at the same time. That it's intuitive.
Well, when I won the Danish National Throwing Championship, it was the first year they were having a throwing competition. They have a world throwing competition in Italy every year in Faenza. And that's a big event down there. People who participate in that get treated like royalty. They have big parties. And the Italian people just go crazy over it. They've got some studios down there where they compete against each other every year. And this was the first year Denmark was going to do it. They have one in Sweden called the Nordic Festival. This was the Danish festival. And we were going to go vacation in southern France, and I said to my wife, you know, we're passing right through that town where the competition is. Let's stop in and see what it's all about. So we stopped in there, and I said, I'm going to sign up for it. Let's keep going. Well, let's stay one night and see what happens. So we stayed with a friend near that town. I qualified for the final round. And she says, come on, let's go to France. This isn't going to lead to anything. Please give me a chance. So she said, I'm going to stay here that day. She stayed back at her friends, and I went in and competed and ended up winning. And I don't think they liked that American won the first Danish throwing championship. I came back and I had a check for 5,000 crowns. Or was it? It was 3,000 crowns, maybe 500 bucks. And the guy we were staying with, he was an old farmer, so I got back to the place and they were eating some food, and I said, well, how'd it go in there? I said, oh, it went pretty good. I won. And the farmer guy stands up and says, take my seat. Thought I was something special. This might be a little noisy for a little bit. But this is a weed burner you buy at a hardware store. You can fire a raku kiln with it. I think they're rated at 500,000 BTUs when they're wide open. But you'll see this doesn't take long to stiffen the clay up. And if you use one of these at home, you got to be careful not to get it too dried out too fast. The clay won't blow up. I don't think I've tried to dry it completely out. The clay won't explode. The bat might catch on fire a little bit. I just want to stiffen this up so it doesn't wiggle anymore. This is kind of wobbly here. I just want to stiffen that up so when I flip it over on the next piece, it's going to support its weight. Yeah, it's tried stiffening it up, drying it out a bit. I think what's actually happening is the surface is what is getting dry, so that's creating like a skin on the clay that makes it more rigid. But after I do this, and if I start working the clay again with my fingers or tools, the clay's going to soften up again because that moisture comes out to the surface. So I'll try to get it to the right spot. And one way you can tell is the dryness of it is how sticky it is when it dry, when you put your finger down and going past. That seems pretty good. Now this will be the bottom piece. Actually, I forgot to make the neck like this one. These two pieces are going to go together, and this will be a neck on it here. I'll make, since I have another wheel, I can make the neck after I put the two pieces together. So that's what I'll do in this case.
How many pounds is the neck?
I think glue is wedged in, so it's about 20 pounds.
A little bit smaller than a bag of clay. I'm
So I don't know. Mark told me about what I do in New London is what? An hour, 2 hours west of here, just north of Wilmer and southwest of St. Cloud. But I have a wood-fired kiln in New London that's total stacking space is about 220 cubic feet to that stacking space. Brad's been out there, and Luce has been out there. Would you say that's about right size? I haven't really measured it.
It's pretty big.
Yeah, but one of my ideas, I got a legacy grant from the state through our regional arts board in 2011 to expand the first chamber of my kiln, with the idea that I would invite potters from outside our area to come and fire the kiln, or help fire, put together some workshops and things. So in April this year, I fired the large chamber since I completed it in, I think, late 2011, I think was when I completed it. You were out there and first time in.
Well, yeah, no, not 2011.
Yeah, and I was still building it, or I maybe just finished.
Yeah, first time we fired just in a small.
Yeah. And I fired it the large chamber 4 times since then, and it worked amazingly better than I had dreamed of it working. It was very successful. I got some slides that we'll show some pictures of later. But the idea is to get it as use it as an asset for our town, to draw people to town that are interested in pottery and interested in handmade things. So the first test run is going to be in April, where I've invited people from different states, and one guy from Canada said he's coming down. A guy from England was going to come, but he couldn't make it this time, and some people from Denmark will come in the fall. The idea is to get people there and excited about pottery, people who are normally not interested in it. It's not hard to get people interested in pottery there. The hard part is getting people excited about pottery who normally don't care. And that's a challenge, I think. And at the same time, we can have fun. The people who are involved have fun doing it. Now this piece is going to have most of its final form when I'm done. Be able to shape it a little bit up at the top. At the bottom part here, this needs to be stiff enough to support that much more clay going on top, plus all the torque that's going to happen when I start working it. So I'll make this piece a little thinner. That piece, I'm still going to stretch that out. This piece, I'll make this a little thinner, and it will look a little larger than that piece. They're the same size, same weight. And for clay that's just been pugged this morning, this clay is very nice. I worked at a traditional pottery in Denmark for 3 years or so, and they had the same kind of system. They didn't have a pug mill though; they had a mixer for their clay. And that clay was so short, when I was pulling it up for the first pull, the clay started splitting apart at the lip. And they had a special way that they pulled up clay for smaller pieces. They'd have this part of the clay was always between a couple fingers, so they could be compressing the clay on the lip at the same time as they're pulling up. It was kind of awkward for me to learn that. And I did learn it because the person who owned the studio said, you have to throw this way. And I would throw up, you know, I figured out my own way to do it, which wasn't, a hand position was different than what she wanted me to use. But I did learn how to use her hand position, so whenever she walked past, I could use that position on my feet. But it was so short, and if you had to pull a spout in, a lot of times they would, put a spout in a pitcher and it would split apart. And the solution for that was when it got clay stiffened up a bit, you just patched it up rather than trying to get it to work the first time. So in New London, there's another fellow there who has a wood kiln. London has 1,200 people, but it has 2 wood-fired kilns right inside the town, inside the city limits. This kiln is probably about the same size, or maybe a little larger in loading space than mine. And he recently, this is the guy who I moved to New London before, making Renaissance souvenirs. Now he's retired from that business, so he's just going to focus on wood-fired pots now. So there's going to be, hopefully in the next 5 years, a lot of activity in New London with the wood kilns. And if anyone wants to do research, you get back to me on if New London might have the highest ratio of wood-fired kilns to population in the city, in the state. Maybe, I think we do. I'm trying to figure out, he's probably got 200 cubic feet, so that's a total of 400 cubic feet in our town, and there's 1,200 people. That's like 3 people per cubic foot. And I think that's a pretty good ratio. I'd be willing to put it up against any other town in the United States.
It was also the mayor of New London?
Yeah, that's-
Oh, okay, sorry, missed that part.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah, I didn't know.
When did you find out?
Someone told me at your birthday party.
Well, has anyone been to New London before? I know Brad's been there. Have you been up there?
Grew up in Wilmer. so
Oh.
it's been a while.
Oh,
You know New London, it's a pretty little town.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get, see, I spend a lot of time just yakking and not a lot of.
Where do most of your finished plots wind up?
See what?
Where do most of your finished plots wind up? What's your market?
My market is galleries, I have a showroom at my house, galleries and art fairs. I'm part of this St. Croix tour. You can, if you want to pass these around, I'm part of that St. Croix Valley tour, and that's about a fourth of my income for the year from that show. So I have about 2 really good shows, 4 other shows that are okay, and sales from my home and galleries. I teach out at the college in Wilmer in fall, so that's another source of income for me. And I do special orders for people who want a certain thing. You know, it's not always what I want to do, but I can't say no to people.
Back to St. Croix Potter Store, this is just amazing.
Yeah.
8 or 9 potters, and they all invite guest potters from all over the world to come and show work yourself. Those will be in my class. This is so amazing that those will be in my class. You have the assignment, remember, to go to the tour and see what's there. You'll just be blown up. It'll be amazing.
yeah, it's like 50 potters in like 15-mile radius, and
I talked to Bob Briscoe yesterday, and he said that they did a research on zip codes, and that 18% of the people that came to visit that came from over 300 miles away. And people come from other countries.
It's almost 1 out of 5 people. That's impressive. I remember meeting some people who were here from London when they flew over for the tour. Yeah. Noticed when before I started torching these, I scraped all the throwing slip off the outside. And then I scraped it up the inside too. That makes it dry out way faster. And if you are able to throw your pots without too deep of throwing rings on either the outside or inside, that'll make your clay stronger too. Because every time there's a little indentation, that makes a weak spot technically, actually in the clay. And when you're throwing, try not to spend too many pulls to get it hot. Try to be fast with your clay. The clay gets fatigued if you work on it really long on the wheel. If you got the clay on the wheel and you're messing with it too long, it just becomes more of more work than it has to be. That's all I brought with Yeah.
So have you ever got hungry and made yourself some hot chocolate s'mores with that?
With this?
Yep.
No. That's a good idea, though. Hadn't thought about that. Well, my studio's 3 steps from my house.
Oh,
It's way easier to go inside.
but that's 3 less stuff.
That's true. I suppose if I wanted to get real efficient, I could stick some things in a bag of clay with some wieners on it. That would be funny.
Get more hits on YouTube.
Okay, now if I was at home, I would be setting this piece on, this one right away. But I would wait 10 minutes or so while this cooled off and stopped steaming like this. So instead of that, I've got these other pieces that I started over here. Is that right here?